Grace and peace to you. This is yours truly, Bishop Bowser, coming at you once again. I want to give you 3 reasons why Antoine Massey is going to get caught. This is the young man that escaped from a New Orleans jail, and it was about 10 of them that escaped, and I believe that he's one of the last ones that is still out and free at this time, or what have you. But eventually, he's going to get caught, and most people know that. But I want to give you 3 reasons as to why I believe that Antoine Massey is going to get caught. And number 1 is a no-brainer, right? He don't have any money, right? And so, of course, it probably was a random type of escape. There was no plan, which I'm gonna get into that in a minute. But if you're going to escape and you're on the run from law enforcement, you most definitely have to have money, right? Because some of the things you want to do is try to hold up somewhere, and you might want to get out of the country or move somewhere where it's secluded and not a lot of people, where you can be discovered, right? And it takes money to move around. It takes money to live. It takes money to do a whole lot of things. And when you don't have money, you have to rely on other people. You have to call people. And so the police and law enforcement, they know, like, hey, we're going to tap his relatives' phones, his friends' phones. We're going to go all the places we know he hung out, places he may have gotten arrested before. If he got any girlfriends, any kids, anything like that, they're going to track those things down. They're going to call people and bug them until they give them information. If they're weak and willing to do that. Some people are strong and not going to give in, even if they know where the individual is. But he don't have any money, right? And so that's he doesn't have any money, and that's why he's going to get caught. That's number 1. I was looking at Frank Matthews. Frank Matthews was a notorious drug dealer back in the 70s, 60s, and 70s. He got arrested in 73, and when it's time for him to go to court for a court hearing, he disappeared, right? And some say that he took $20 million and his girlfriend and fled the country. But see, he had money, and that was in the 70s, and he's been gone for, I think, 51 years or more, and have not been found, right? And so that's the other thing that Antoine Massey is doing wrong, right? He's coming on these live feeds and things like that. But that I'll get to that in a minute. But Frank Matthews. Now, some say that the Genesee crime family took him over to Barbados or somewhere and killed him or what have you. That could have happened, but I don't believe that. I really believe that he escaped and he got away and he disappeared, and no one has never seen him ever again. And that does mean that when you want to try to escape the law, that you're going to have to disconnect yourself from all relatives and friends and even kids and everyone. He left his kids behind and everything. And so those are the things that you have to do if you want to stay free. And so this young man doesn't have any money, and I know he wanted to get out and have a good time, but people are not thinking ahead. He should have just stayed in jail if he didn't have a plan, because when you get caught, it's going to just add time to it. It's only a matter of time that he's going to get caught, right? And so number 2 is that, and that's what I mentioned earlier, right, is that Antoine, he doesn't have a plan, right? And here's the thing, even if you don't have money like Frank Matthews, if you have a plan, you can succeed. You don't have to be smart. Think about the slaves during slavery. A lot of them couldn't read, they couldn't write, they didn't have too much, right? But a lot of them runaway slaves, they escaped and they got to Canada, right? And when they got to Canada, they were free, right? And many of them lived their lives out as free black people versus being a slave. And so, a lot of that is tied into the Underground Railroad. So there was support, right? So when you have a plan, you for sure going to have a support base that's going to help you. And, if he was to go to Mexico or go to Canada, what is that going to help him? He's going to get caught. They have extradition laws, and eventually somebody's going to see him and he's going to get caught. when you look at the slaves back when they were fleeing to Canada, they had a strong support base, right? Because in Canada, slavery was abolished, and not only was it abolished, but they had laws that favored them and protected them once they got to Canada. And not only that, but they had a strong support base, right? They had community support and things like that. And I'm gonna get into that in a minute. But the political and social climate was great because the British Empire had gotten rid of, done away with or abolished slavery in 1833. And so slaves went there and they had a plan because you had the Underground Railroad, right? And that was a secret network known to help enslaved Americans, right? Black Americans escape from U.S. to Canada. So they had conductors and sympathizers assisting the fugitives and the runaway slaves by providing shelter, guidance, and transportation. And so you need those things if you're going to get away. You have to have a plan. How am I get from A to B to C to D and so on? And he doesn't have a plan, right? We can tell that because of what he's doing. And number three, you need a support, right? You need a support team. That's what the runaway slaves had. They had a support team. They didn't have a lot of money, but they had people who were supporting and helping them that had money and had resources, and they used those resources to help him. So you need a support team, a community to get behind you, and people to help you. Because once the slaves got to Canada, many former slaves found communities for free black people and churches and organizations that supported their integration and to help them rebuild their lives. And wherever you go, wherever you escape to, whatever was a rural area or another country, wherever you go, you got to have that support team in order to stay free, right? And so, most people, when they run for the law, they do have money or they have a plan, and then once they get away, they have a support team, right? Because you got to have that if you want to stay free. And Antione Massey doesn't have any of that, and that's why I believe that sooner or later he's going to get caught. He's not going to be able to disappear off the scene like Frank Matthews. He's not going to be able to disappear off the scene like the runaway slaves. Frank Matthews was never seen again. The runaway slaves were never seen again, right? As far as in America or wherever, down in the South where slavery was going on, they hid, right? And they stayed out of the way. And you got to do that if you want to stay free. Now they're back on his track. They know he's in New Orleans. If he wouldn't have came on that live feed, maybe they would have, not know where he is. But my thing is, to Antione Massey, turn yourself in, bro, because all you're doing is making things worse for yourself. All right. God bless you.